Okay.
Make me look pretty. No, just joking.
Chef Stephen Albright is the culinary director of the Franciscan Center of Baltimore, feeding thousands of people each week in Baltimore, Maryland, near the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. Many of them unemployed.
Yes, I'm unemployed myself, actually. And when I lost my jobs, I lost everything.
Many here consider Chef Stephen a vital lifeline. He and his staff feeding the hungry at a time when African Americans are twice as likely to be unemployed than white citizens here in the U.S.
It's alarming to know that African American people that are struggling when America is supposed to be the greatest country on the earth, you know.
10 million people are unemployed in this country. Among whites able to work, 4.5% are without jobs. Among African Americans able to work, 9% are unemployed. Double the white unemployment rate that civil rights activists blame on several factors, like structural racism and discrimination, they say, against blacks applying for jobs. Fewer education opportunities for blacks compared to whites. The mass incarceration of African Americans that hurt employment opportunities when they are released. The U.S. government's failure to enforce equal opportunity hiring of African Americans and other people of color. And lack of information about employment opportunities in impoverished inner cities. To poor transportation, like public bus service that often runs behind schedule, unable to deliver African Americans on time to jobs that are often up to 2 hours away. Chef Stephen says he has been fortunate to overcome the many obstacles African Americans face finding employment. His extraordinary personal story began serving in the U.S. Navy, then becoming a bodyguard for the rich and famous.
You know, JFK Jr.
He says to his daughter he was the coolest dad on earth.
And nothing about the addiction part.
He says drug and alcohol addiction landed him in prison in 2007 for domestic violence.
Facing 64 years in prison for a domestic violence assault, you know. I realized that drinking and drugging wasn't the way anymore.
His daughter visiting him in prison during nearly 6 years behind bars. Today, his soup kitchen colleague here and friend Steve Carosi loves telling people the backstory of how Chef Stephen got hooked on cooking, watching cooking shows in prison.
We're roasting this chicken.
And Steve sat in prison watching PBS cooking shows, right? And cooked when he was in prison.
When he got out of prison, Chef Stephen earned degrees in culinary arts and baking. He worked at several restaurants in Baltimore, he says, before realizing that he belonged at the Franciscan Center, feeding the city's economically disadvantaged.
Having a job and being able to go to work and provide for your own, I feel is probably one of the most paramount things that a person can have that raises their self-esteem.
He didn't wait for an opportunity to come to him. He manufactured that in a lot of ways. Steve needed a second chance, and Steve manufactured that chance.
Steve Carosi is director of culinary programs for the Franciscan Center. That includes him going to homeless camps each day to drop off food for those living on the streets, most all of whom are unemployed.
They are definitely unemployed. They are, for one reason or another, they've chosen to kind of live off the grid.
And he and Chef Stephen have also launched a cooking school here that has trained students from 18 to 72 years of age.
There are a lot of folks we're working with who have just not had the chance. The education system is overtaxed, was not able to provide everything that they needed as they've come through school. They are dealing with all kinds of issues, including childhood trauma. Folks who have just never been set up to succeed in the workforce or professionally. So it's both a second chance and a first chance.
Many of the graduates finding jobs in restaurants, as well as here at the Franciscan Center Soup Kitchen.
Jonesy, you're gonna do the eggs.
One of them, Jonesy, a 27-year-old father who says before this opportunity, he was unemployed and facing very hard times.
Yes, I definitely know what it feels like to be unemployed. Felt what a lot of people feel, to sleep outside during winter nights, to sleep outside in the rain, the snow. I know exactly what it felt like firsthand. It was very hard to find work. And nobody was hiring, so I put in multiple applications, I did the footwork. Everybody just kept giving me the runaround, so it was hard for me to pay my bills, hard for me to take care of kids, and provide for my family.
I love Baltimore, and I love the people here, and there is a real community, and you do got to know it.
Diedrich Asante Muhammad, a fellow with the Institute for Policy Studies, says higher unemployment numbers among blacks is not just an issue in Baltimore, but in every big city across the country. A never-ending plague of inequality African Americans have suffered for decades, he says, compared to white citizens in the U.S.
I have a white mother, a black father. My mother was very involved in the civil rights movement, was reading a lot of Martin Luther King. I read most of King by the time I was 13, so was really into these issues of race and inequality, and a lot of Dr. King's later writings focused a lot on economics.
He says the economic challenges facing African Americans are not just at this moment in time, but are challenges, he says, that have seemingly always been there.
To me, the great challenge is we're not at just a moment of serious economic challenge for African Americans' unemployment, but that African Americans for the last near 60 years have had twice the unemployment rate of white Americans, almost nonstop. And so last I looked, I believe African American unemployment's around 9%, close to 9%, which is about twice that of whites, and that would be pretty much close to a high of unemployment during the Great Recession. So, people talk about the economy coming back, but it's coming back to the inequality that has marked it for the last 60 years, or you could argue throughout this country's history.
And what impact does it have, Diedrich, on families?
Sure. Well, I think, unemployment is one aspect of the kind of economic marginalization, right? So if you have a high unemployment in your community, then you're going to have lower income, which all means great insecurity. It means also in our society, it means lack of health insurance. It can mean lack of days off, lack of benefits, lack of time. And all of these things just create more stress and challenges in communities that are, like the African American community, still to a large extent or to a broad extent racially segregated in areas where there is high poverty, high unemployment. It's hard to feel that you have a dignified life if you don't feel that you can economically provide for yourself and your family.
Higher unemployment in the black community, he says, also unfortunately means higher crime rates.
Like right here, it's just a mixture of unemployment, insecurity, and then violence as ways that people find a way for employment can be drug trade, these types of things, which leads to violence.
And we're going to have a multi-generational commitment to seriously address these issues, or we're going to continue where we have been, which is just ongoing racial economic apartheid. And it really speaks to a falsehood of great democracy, great prosperity of the United States.
Though some of Chef Stephen's staff here say some African Americans can do a better job applying themselves when it comes to looking for work.
I think it depends on the person. I mean, it is a lot of unemployment going on, but there's still jobs out here. You just got to go out there and find them. A lot of people, they got on that unemployment, kind of got lazy, didn't want to do anything.
There's a lot of racism goes on, but that don't have nothing to do with the job economy. People got to apply themselves. In my opinion, we don't really apply ourselves as we should. As a community, as a race, or whatever the case may be, we don't apply ourselves. So people got to apply themselves to go. You got to set goals and go get what you want. You got to want to work. You got to show them that you got work effort, like every day. Keep calling them, pressing up on them. Oh, I came to an interview. I just want to know if there's any positions. Just keep constantly calling back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And eventually, might get 1,000 no's, but out of them 1,000 no's, you might get a yes.
Jonesy got his yes, was offered a job as an assistant chef here at the Franciscan Center Soup Kitchen after graduating from the culinary school here. What is your message to white employers that might not hire an African American because of the color of their skin?
Give them a chance. Everybody deserves a chance. Everybody's a human being, no matter the race, black, white, Mexican, whatever the case may be. Everybody deserves a chance to prove themselves to maybe you or a higher person than you, but everybody has the right to prove their own self.
We normally serve about 130,000 meals a year. Last year we served over 340,000.
Since Chef Steven got his second chance, he is credited for providing healthier restaurant quality dishes nowadays for the unemployed and homeless residents of Baltimore. His soup kitchen menu, all donated meats and fish and poultry and vegetables from local wholesalers, is considered one of the most diverse and exquisite in the United States.
I think the idea is to serve something else a little bit more nourishing and just educating the folks that we serve what type of food we're doing it. We've gotten away from the starchy stuff of the white rices. We now serve quinoa, couscous, tabbouleh, brown rice. So just food that's more nourishing and healthier.
Chef Steven says thanks to the Franciscan Center, he was given a second chance. Not because of the color of his skin, he says, but because he can do the job. And he says the roughly 7 million unemployed African Americans in this country deserve no less a chance from prospective employers.
I mean, for them to get up every day, to go someplace, to give, 6 to 8 hours or whatever it is they're working, but to be able to have their own, have shelter, to have food on their table. So it's very important that folks are working.
Chef Jonesy,